it. That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to the human side, managing fear, change, and skepticism as it relates to AI, a brand new 5-part pulse check series from Enrollify. I'm Carrie Phillips, CCMO at UA Little Rock. In this series, we're talking about the human aspect of AI, how we create cultures that are open to this work, how we bring people who are maybe a little unsure about AI as part of our journey, how we manage fear and manage change. This is going to be a great series, so let's jump right in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Higher Ed Pulse series. Today, we're talking about something that doesn't get nearly enough airtime in the AI conversation, and that's the human side, right? So AI brings a ton of excitement, but let's be real. It can bring fear, it can bring doubt, it can bring skepticism, and honestly, that's normal. You know, anytime there's a major change, people get nervous about what it means for their job, their identity, their workflow, the things that they've spent years working on. So today we're going to talk not so much about the technology, but more about how leaders can help during these moments, how they can help us navigate the uncertainty. And so I am so excited to have Irene Borys from Augustana College in Illinois here with us. And Irene, welcome to the mic.
Hi, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
I want to start first off, just very broad. Tell me a little bit as you come to us, people in higher ed are reacting to AI. How is that part different from those same conversations that are happening in the corporate space?
Yeah, it's wildly different. So I joined higher ed about a year and a half ago from an agency setting. And I have been profoundly struck by how intentional the thought process has been in higher ed about the adoption of AI. So in an agency setting, the whole conversation about AI adoption is really like, how is this going to make my work faster and easier? And what competitive advantage is it going to give us? And then if it demonstrates one, you adopt it and you're done. And what I've experienced in higher ed is so much deeper questions from every area. So from the administration, the faculty, students themselves, they're asking much deeper questions like, what is my purpose going to be after the implementation of this? And how is my craft that I'm building the skills around going to be different because of AI? And how does this make my hunt for my first job going to be different because of AI? So I think the intention is what has struck me the most and impressed me also. That thought process, I think, is really appropriate for higher ed. So, for example, at Augustana, the last 2 semesters, a team was put together to ask these questions. It was faculty and administration, folks from across campus, and ask about its implementation and ask questions together, learn together. There were folks who were early adopters. There were folks that were really against the implementation. And that dialogue really brought amazing things to the surface. And what they ended up developing is our statement on the use of AI and some guidance and useful sort of guardrails around the use of it.
I love that. And I love what you said about, it's appropriate for higher ed, because I think that's really where higher ed is a little bit different than a lot of industries, is that we are those people that pause. Sometimes we pause too long, but we do pause and think about what is the longevity of something, what is the long-term impact. And that really sets our students up in the critical thinking space to be able to navigate this. So I love that part of what you said. I'm also curious, what stands out to you about people's fear, anxiety, concerns when it comes to AI on a college campus?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked this question because I have found in supporting experimentation and evaluating some new ideas and new ways of working that what I might have read as fear at first, or what I might have read as resistance at first, it's actually when I take a second look and I look behind that, it's the motivations are really care. We're interacting with folks who care very profoundly and deeply about the impact that they have on a student's development and on the acquisition of the skills that they need and on the development of their craft and the development of their thinking around their purpose. That they will then have be equipped to execute through their career. I feel that those are pretty relevant questions to be asking about AI. They're real. There are real concerns about authorship. There are concerns about what its impacts on learning. There are concerns about what is integrity in use of AI in a classroom. So in my navigating it, though, I am finding that it's really less about the use of the technology or the tool. Like, it's really more about protecting meaning, protecting what is the meaning of art, protecting what is the meaning of craft, what is the meaning of the work that I do and deliver, and what is the meaning of learning and how we do it. So an example I can give of that is at Communications and Marketing, we have developed branded GPTs. So I can give access to a branded GPT that's been built with all of this data and information in the back and offer it as a link to anyone who has a ChatGPT account. And we didn't create it to offer more efficiency. Really, the goal was to support our campus partners. So anyone across campus who is communicating with external stakeholders can leverage these GPTs to better align their communications to the voice of the brand and our priorities at the time. And what I found supported a sense of curiosity and openness to using these is to set the guardrails around it. It's not an open sandbox. It's a clear sandbox. This GPT, you can put in a piece of content that you created, and it's going to evaluate it against all of these, this data and information, and it's going to give back a suggestion and then provide the reasoning behind the suggestion. So it's not going to author content for you. It's not going to publish for you. It's going to do this thing, this useful thing. And that framing the sandbox I found is what enabled folks to understand, okay, this is useful, and I understand how to interact with it.
And I think you hit on something really smart there is you've got to reframe where people are coming from, because when you can pull back those layers and you see it's really from care, that does really change your approach. And I love this idea that you've done. I was talking with somebody else the other day about putting in guardrails and then giving people the ability to kind of creatively solve within that safe space within that framework. And that's exactly what you've done. You've said, here's where this is going to give you some insight and suggestions, but we're still going to work within kind of this frame. So, that is a phenomenal real life use case. I'm curious, are there some other things that you're doing on campus that are really sticking and helping to adjust workflow or real problems, and it's taking it out of that theoretical and putting it into application?
For me, that stickiness moment, it's not really about the tool. I think it's easy for folks to see that a tool is useful, and really the harder work behind it is to take the time and be open to figuring out a new way of working. How do I rethink how I'm working so that it's smarter, and sort of allow that takes time and space and thinking. So for me, what I'm finding is that magic moment, like the light bulb moment, when someone's sort of like, aha, this is why this is going to be awesome, is when they've interacted with it and it doesn't become about the tool anymore or the thing that it produces. It's that aha of like, oh man, I think I found a thought partner here. I found a tool that can challenge the way that I'm thinking about this task and can leverage all of this data of, information about focus groups and data sets about target audiences and all of that background information about our brand and our competitive positioning and reputation strategy. All of this stuff everyone has ready access to, but doesn't have the support needed to make it useful in the moment that they need it to make their work better.
Yes.
And so this tool suddenly is like, oh, I have a thought partner, and it helps make accessible all of this stuff I already have access to and applies it in the moment that I need it to the thing I'm trying to do.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I got to think too, it gives you confidence or gives your team confidence that all of a sudden the thing that they know intrinsically, like the data, it's looking at it from a data approach and it's giving that real-time feedback.
Oh, absolutely. My favorite comment from a member of the admissions team during a focus group was that pure, simple sentence. Using this tool is increasing my confidence in my communications.
Oh, that's phenomenal. So I want to shift gears just a second and talk about our students because, part of what makes AI so complicated, I think, for institutions is we're grappling with how to use this ourselves, but also how to teach our students how to be good users and good stewards because when they get out in the workforce, this is going to be something that they interact with. And I'm curious because students tend to be really early tech adopters. How are students kind of interacting with that dialogue on campus and maybe pushing the needle to move things faster? Or are they, what does that look like on your campus?
Yeah, I expect that students will probably always be early to experiment and early to adopt technology. And I don't see that as pressure. I actually see that as a positive. But
Okay.
in fact, my experience in conversations with the students that I know is that they're also grappling with this and what they feel about it and its implications just as much as everyone else. I talk to students that are excited and bringing me ideas of how to use it. And I have spoken to others that say, no way, there isn't a place for AI in a classroom. And we do believe that it's actually cheating to use this tool. And I don't open it when I'm working on an assignment. So they're grappling with these ideas alongside us.
Yeah.
We're not alone in it. And they're grappling with it as they're learning what their purpose is and what they intend to do with their lives. We're already in our careers. We already have executed an amount of career progression and skill acquisition, and we know what we're doing and we're
Yeah.
making use of it to make our work a little bit better. They are grappling with it as they're acquiring their skills, and also they're grappling with the idea of, well, what is this going to mean for the first job that I
Yeah.
have? What is this going to mean for me being able to get a first job and being able to succeed in it? So I think that their questions are just as thoughtful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that's it though. I think they may look a little bit different, but I think they're all we're all getting at the same thing of what does this look like and how does this intersect with our world. And so I'm curious, again, going back to this idea that you've been in higher ed for a year and a half, anything that transferred surprisingly well into higher ed and maybe something that didn't?
That absolutely didn't. So I will say that what has been extremely valuable is change leadership. It's the same work. You listen to the people around you. You name the uncertainty that you're all facing. You give that permission to not be perfect, to say, we're going to try and we don't have to have all the answers. And that's the same. That's exactly the same. What didn't transfer is the pace. So what I may have been accustomed to in a quarterly testing and execution cycle or quarterly revenue goals and achieving them and moving on and doing the next one. There's nothing like that. I mean, the experimentation that I'm experimenting with, even with the most willing, enthusiastic partners, because it needs to execute for an entire cycle, I can propose an experiment that might take 6 weeks in my mind. And then as we're moving through, when is it useful to find data about this? And we also need to take into consideration about this? And how are we going to roll it out? And then by the end of it, it's actually more than a year. Our final meeting with final results is like 2027 in February.
Higher ed, yeah, the sales cycle there is very long and the whole and higher ed doesn't exactly move as fast, does it?
No, not and also the other thing is that there's a little bit more work to experimentation. So in an agency setting, it's almost a given if you can prove something makes your work more efficient
Yeah.
and is a tool that will deliver a return on investment, then adoption is pretty much assumed. Whereas in higher ed, experimentation has a little bit more work to do. It's got to earn trust first.
Ooh,
And
okay.
so in the rollout with our brand GPTs or in the experimentation with the brand GPTs that we're still in development of them, we framed their use as an invitation. And through the process of use and focus groups and adjustment and implementation, we learned alongside our partners what to create this tool to do and how to serve our partners better. And I feel like that process mattered.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and it's that idea of we're collegial together. So I get that side of it. I'm curious from your perspective as you've done a lot of leadership and change management work, if there's a campus leader that's following along here and wants to start thinking more about some of these things, what's a practical step that you would suggest that they use to really introduce AI without overwhelming their team? Like, what's that first thing they should be doing?
Yeah, I actually think it's a pure leadership thing. So it's really about, I would say, ask a better question. So rather than approaching your people and saying, how can we use AI, which puts the burden of evaluation and experimentation solely on their shoulders, ask the question, where would support make you better at doing your work? Where would having some support enable you to do what you do best better? And then listen to what that is, and then craft a solution around that. So that question asking approach was affirmed recently by our president, who has developed a futurist thinking series. And the idea of this series is to ask big questions and think about them together and evaluate the implications on leadership and the future of education and the future of the of what we're doing here and its implications to the communities around us. And she decided that AI was going to be one of the topics that we tackle. It's actually the topic of our next one in middle of March. And for me, adding that topic to the future series was saying that this is actually not a technical problem to solve. This is one of those big questions. And this is, how do we lead through change? And how do we do what we promised to do well in an environment that's changing around us, but with care?
So often it's not the what that we're doing, it's the how. And I think your big question kind of approach there really gets at that. We are coming up on time. And so I want to hit one last question. And this is, you're in a new sector. There's a lot of new emerging tech that's happening. How are you, staying steady and still leading through that with a learning curve?
I would say that there's one thing that I need in any role that I'm doing, and it's to be aligned with mission, working at a place where I believe the direction they're going is the right way to get there. And I have that here. So when I need to remind myself that it's not really about being an early adopter, even though I do really love having those early benefits of being an early adopter, I remind myself, listen, what's the purpose here? The point here is we prepare students for the types of lives that are meaningful, for being equipped to not only succeed and lead in their careers, but also to lift others around them as they do it. And that the thoughtful participation in the world. So as long as I anchor in that and remember that that's what we're trying to do, it stabilizes me through being able to navigate myself and the people around me through change.
I love that. And, going back to the mission, what matters. So, time sure does fly when you're having fun. AI and change management, it doesn't have to be scary. So thank you so much for making the time to join us. Everybody, that's it for today. Until next time, carry on.
The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.